You know, I had a talk all prepared for tonight, but I'm not going to use it. Is that good or bad? I don't know. But I tell you, when I heard about the death of Father Jacques yesterday, on my way here to Krakow, it's just stayed in my mind, all of yesterday, all of today, in a kind of haunting way. And I thought it might have been the Lord's way of telling me, I want you to tell these 20,000 young people something about that. You know, we live in the age of martyrs right now. The 20th century had more martyrs than all the previous centuries combined. And the 21st century is off to a rather horrific start. People dying for their Christian faith all over the world. Most recently, just yesterday, Father Jacques, who was killed while saying Mass in the Church of Saint Etienne, Saint Stephen, the first martyr. Martyrdom has marked Christianity from the beginning, and it marks it today. Friends, I want to talk to you tonight very briefly about the cross and in the presence of Jesus himself. The cross. Do you know if someone came from the ancient world in a time machine to this place right now, and they were told this was a religious ceremony, and we were gathered around a cross, they would think we had lost our minds. Because there was nothing in the ancient world more horrific, more terrifying than the cross. The cross was a kind of state-sponsored terrorism. It was the Roman Empire's way of saying, if you go against us, that's what we'll do to you. There was no more denigrating, humiliating, and dehumanizing way to die than the cross. When Paul says in Philippians that Jesus accepted even death on a cross, they knew what he meant. They meant dying in the worst way possible. What was crucifixion? Someone was stripped of their clothes. They were publicly humiliated. They were made to carry the cross beam through the streets. Nailed then to the upright, they were exposed to everybody. You know how the gospel has preserved the mockery of Jesus? They mock him. That was part of the humiliation, the dehumanization. Someone suffered for hours, in some cases days. And when they died, their body was left on that cross. They couldn't imagine a worse suffering than crucifixion, which is why our word excruciating comes from the Latin ex cruce, from the cross. Why in the world was it needed? See, that's the question, everybody. Why in the world was the cross necessary? Someone asked the great Saint Anselm this question. Why couldn't God just have pronounced a word of forgiveness from heaven and gotten this whole thing over with? Why was that necessary? St. Anselm replied, "Oh, you've not considered the weight of sin." See, what's sin, everybody? What is sin? It's not just a series of little, peccadillos, little things that we do wrong. Sin is a kind of condition. It's like a disease, like an addiction. It's a state in which we find ourselves. And you don't have to look very far, do you, to see evidence of it. It's everywhere. We're stuck. G.K. Chesterton said, we're all in the same boat, and we're all seasick. We're all stuck in this condition. God could have pronounced a word from on high, simply a word of forgiveness. But that would not have addressed the problem of sin. God, listen now, had to go into our sin so as to fix it from within. Go back to those passion narratives we read every Easter. What do we see? But all forms of human dysfunction. We see stupidity, we see hatred, we see violence, we see cruelty, we see institutional injustice, we see all of human dysfunction on display. Where did Jesus go? Where did he go? He went into it. Or better, in the language of the Bible, he took all of it upon himself and paid the price. He did the work. He fought the battle. I wonder if some of you remember, it's about maybe 15 years ago now, the Columbine killings. Remember that? When the guy killed his classmates at Columbine High School outside of Denver. On the very day of the killing, there was a kind of psychologist or social worker who was telling the kids, are you ready to pronounce a word of forgiveness to the killers? Well, see, that was well-intentioned, but that's missing the point of what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is not just a little word that we offer, something as blithe and easy as that. Forgiveness, everybody, is hard work. Forgiveness means entering into dysfunction, pain, and sin and addressing it. I'll give you an example. Just a few years ago, there was an Amish family. You know, the Amish ride in the little buggies, little carriages, horse-drawn carriages. There was a family, 2 parents and their son in the carriage. And behind them came a car filled with kind of rowdy teenagers. And they were mad that this carriage wasn't going fast enough. And so they drove around it, and then just to get them, they had a little rock or a brick, and one of them threw it at them, hoping just to hit the horse. Well, they hit the young man, and they killed him. Terrible, horrific tragedy. What did the parents do, the parents of that young man? They went to court when he was being tried. They testified on his behalf, urging the judge not to condemn him. The judge did condemn him, sent him to prison. And then every month, those parents came to prison and visited the young man who killed their son. That's forgiveness. Do you see what I mean? That's not an easy word. That's entering into sin and conquering it with the divine mercy. That's the cross. That's the cross. That's what it means. God taking upon himself all of our sin and swallowing it up in the ever greater divine mercy. Now, what has this done? And what's so moving to me tonight, especially to be here in Krakow, is that we can see it on display. The cross, the divine love that conquers the wickedness of the world, unleashes power. Oh, not the power of the world, not the weapons of the world, something far greater. Do you see how the cross of Jesus Christ, from the beginning of Christianity to today, is a kind of taunt? That was meant to terrify the whole world. The cross. There was nothing more horrific, nothing more terrifying. The first Christians held it up as if to say, you think that scares us? We're not afraid, because God's love, God's mercy has conquered all that the world can throw at it. That's why Paul says, I preach one thing, Christ and Him crucified. That's why up and down the ages, the great saints and martyrs have held up and embraced the cross. You know, when I came in, I was so moved to see the images there of Maximilian Kolbe, Jerzy Popowuszko, those great martyrs of the 20th century. Look at the power they unleashed, everybody. It's the power of the divine mercy correcting sin from the inside. The power of the divine mercy overcoming all the world can throw at it. John Paul, of course, is on all of our minds. The great scene in 1979 when John Paul came to Warsaw, and there was the whole communist government behind him, remember? And John Paul spoke of God and of creation and of redemption and of human rights and of human dignity. And as he spoke, as you well know, the crowd, much bigger than this, 1 million strong, began to chant, "We want God, we want God, we want God." And perceptive analysts of the time knew at that moment the communist government was through. Even though they had all the nuclear weapons, they had all the armies, all the tanks, and all the guns. John Paul had something more powerful. That cross. That cross. And do you remember the scene? There was a mighty cross that was erected on that dais. It's more powerful than anything that's in the world. Here's my point now. I'm going to close with this. Our Christianity is not simply for our private consumption. Do you know what I'm saying, everybody? It's not just a little spirituality that we cultivate. Jesus said, "You are salt and you are light. Do not put the light under a bushel basket." We Christians are meant to invade the world so as to transform it from the inside. How? How? Through the power of the cross. By doing what Jesus did, taking upon ourselves the dysfunction of the world, doing the hard work of forgiving love. That's what Père Jacques did yesterday, joining this long line, this noble army of Christian martyrs. Listen now, may all of you, filled with the wonderful enthusiasm of this moment, and who could not be moved during that Eucharistic procession? I was deeply moved seeing everybody, hearing the singing, seeing the martyrs of the 20th century. Who could not be moved by this? Good, good. But now, don't rest in it, but go forth to transform the world. Go forth. We do want God. We do want God, you're right. And we want God not just for ourselves. We want God for the world. We want God for the world. And we're meant to be salt and light and seed. And so go forth, everybody, with the power of Jesus' cross.